Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today is Kimberly Lowe. Kimberly is going to take a big step here. She's running for the U.S. Senate against Senator Kaine, correct?
Correct.
She's a Republican candidate, and she hopes to get on the ballot to do that. So, Kimberly, welcome.
Thank
This
you.
is a big thing to do. I mean,
It
that's a big shoes to fill there, so to speak.
Thank you.
Tell us most of the questions, or the first question I ask everyone that's running for any kind of office is, why do you want to do this?
Sure. So my name's Kimberly Lowe. I'm from Virginia. We are going to have a Republican primary coming up. People can start voting on May 5th for this. There's a lot of candidates running, and there's a lot of candidates running because we believe that we can make a difference in the country. But I'm the only candidate on the Republican ticket that was born and raised in Virginia. My family helped settle Virginia in the 1600s, and I have done a lot to improve everything for Virginians. I've worked on every project you can imagine. I'm a really big problem solver. And I really believe that if you're going to run for a big office like this, then you should have really known the state of Virginia, and you should have accomplished something for the citizens in Virginia before you take a jump like this. I'm a single mom. My kids are 14, 16, 18. I've got two boys. They're the younger ones, and a daughter who just turned 18. And it's not like it was when I was in my 20s.
No.
You know, we went to college. It was a little more affordable. It was still pretty expensive. I could go out. I could get an apartment. Now kids don't have that option. It's really tough.
Yeah.
We've got a really tough drug epidemic across Virginia. I know in Front Royal area, it's really rough here. A lot of simple policy solutions can stop this. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, we're in a really, really rough spot in America. Division is at an all-time high, and I really think when you go out in Virginia and you speak to the voters and you speak to people, you see that division is really very much so created by other things, and people love their families. They love their communities. And what I really want to do is I want to bring people together. I want to raise an army of youth and anyone in all sorts of different communities to come together to make a difference to improve their lives. And it's going to take more than you or me or other people. There's so much that we can work on so we can have vibrant and prosperous communities. And it is a hard economy out there. As a single mom, I go to the grocery store and you barely get anything now. You walk out and it's so much money.
I was
right?
at the store last night and I noticed the same thing. And I also noticed that the shelves aren't as full as they used to be.
Correct. Yeah, that's
or
scary.
We don't have as many choices as we used to have. You know, you want to even beans. You know, I had 22 choices. Now you got 3. You know,
Yeah. So the economy is fixable. It's common sense policy. Basically, when we did not become energy independent anymore, we actually started to buy our energy from terrorists. Places like Iran, for example, we had Iran down to $4 billion. Within 2 years in the last administration, we started to give Iran $44 billion. We started to get energy from them. They are the number one killers of Americans in the entire world. And that money went to go and fund the chaos that's occurring in the Middle East right now. We have Americans dying and bases being bombed because we decided to fund terrorists for our energy. This is common sense. Let's not do that. We can produce stuff at home. Let's produce stuff here. When you do that, it's going to lower the gas prices. It's going to lower the cost to transport food. It's going to lower the cost of food. The other thing I'm real concerned about is food security. You were just discussing this. It's really sad. They really don't want us to produce our own food. There is one public law that allows us to only produce 20,000 chickens, but it doesn't really allow you to produce much as far as beef or lamb or goat is concerned. I'm a farmer, come from a farming family. I have multiple farms. I'm from Southwest Virginia. There are so many great ways that we could have really fresh food that goes farm to table, and younger generations of farmers can start out. Our farmers are dying out. If we change one public law at the federal level, younger generations of people can start out with very little money and they can be prosperous and we can have fresh food at our grocery stores. There's just too much red tape. And again, it's not common sense.
Right.
And
let the market determine
There you
what
go.
farmers need to grow, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing about that is a lot of people have health issues. They have a lot of inflammation and autoimmune diseases, and a lot of this stems from the food that we're eating. And if we can produce food locally, I mean, Front Royal is the perfect place for this. I mean, mountains, beautiful, incredible downtown. I mean, it's such a great example in the 6th Congressional District of how a town can be. It's amazing. It could really improve the economy just in our sense of farming. But yeah, I have a lot of other issues if you don't mind me talking.
No, we want to find out. We want our viewers to know Kimberly Lowe,
Thank you.
So when they make that decision come May, that they'll be able to pick the candidate they think that's going to do the best for them and for Virginia.
So I like to keep it real with people. Sometimes I talk about my personal life, but I did what I thought was normal. I got married. I had 3 kids. I was a public school teacher. I taught in inner city schools. I taught grades 6 through 12 in Roanoke City. I was told that my expectations were too high. I needed to change my grades. I needed to show the kids more movies, and I needed to not spend so much time with the kids after school. These kids sometimes slept in their car. It was 11 different housing projects, and I figured out that we were dumbing down our students, and I couldn't stay in that because it wasn't ethical, and I couldn't help the kids that way at all. So education is really important. We have to have a lot of shifts in education. I ended up homeschooling my kids, but I actually moved from Roanoke to Brunswick County, which is in Southside. It's extremely rural, and I didn't realize that people had a different quality of life than how I grew up in Roanoke.
It's
right?
eye-opening, isn't it?
I had no idea, and I had lived in Europe. I studied in Europe. I mean, I have a lot of higher degrees. I'm not sure I used my higher degrees, but I'm book smart at least. But when I moved to Brunswick County, I thought people could have a better quality of life. So that's when I got involved in politics. I hadn't thought, am I a Democrat? Am I a Republican? What am I? I didn't even think about it then. And we came together as a community to work on stuff. And within a 7-county distance, people started to come to me and they said, "Are you Kim Lowe?" "Yes, I am." "I heard you get stuff done. I have a problem." I'm like, "Okay, what's your problem?" So farmers would come to me and they'd say, "Miss Lowe, my entire fields are flooding. I can't produce what I need to produce." And so I pulled in the Army Corps of Engineers, the Navy, mayor, city council in order to open up river blockages, because a lot of these rivers are unmaintained, and it really is the responsibility of places like the Army Corps of Engineers to deal with this. But instead, there's so much red tape and bureaucracy. They want to do studies of the river before they can stop all of this.
We have that right here.
Yeah.
When the debris fills up the creek here behind us, and we have to have a permit. We just can't go clean it out. I said, that sounds like work we do on Saturday. We clean it out. You know? Well, we used to do that, and never had flooding. Now we got flooding everywhere. Because we're worried about trying to protect a wiggly worm or something that's...
Yeah, there's a lot of studies.
A lot of red tape.
So there's ways to get around stuff.
So it sounds like you're a person that, you're going to get stuff done.
I get stuff done. So
figure out a way, right?
Yeah, so the other issue was during COVID, special needs students lost their funding and they weren't able to go to school. And this was so hard on families. So I was able to get people to work together to ensure that those kids got that funding to go to school. I'm really good at getting people to work together, and that's what we need. We don't need politicians who are going to blow up the bridges. We need people who can bring people together and stop all the division and just get stuff done, because these are nonpartisan issues, right? The other thing I did is early during COVID in rural areas, we didn't have any type of COVID testing. We didn't know what was going on. So I brought in a mobile clinic in order to provide to a whole bunch of different counties in Southside. I've worked on Rails to Trails, which is great for really the economy, bringing people in, tourism.
Helping that quality of life.
Yeah, it's great because there's a lot of railroad beds that can be converted, and it's fantastic for people. It is, and it's good. It's good for health as well. I've opened up transitional homes, domestic violence shelters in rural areas because they're lacking all over Virginia. A lot of people don't have places to go. Men also are victims of abuse, and people don't talk about that stuff. Right. And then a lot of times you have a lot of people, particularly up and down the I-81 corridor, who have been trafficked. And typically when they're trafficked, they get addicted to some type of substance, and a lot of shelters won't take them because of this addiction. So we found creative ways to deal with these and give solutions for people to give them a better life. So I'm just really good at solving problems. I've been involved at the local level of politics, built up relationships at the local level, state level, national level, and most recently the international level. I went to Europe in October and November. I did 8 countries in 18 days. I met with world leaders and members of the European Parliament and members of parliament outside of the European Union. And I'm currently working on reviving a transatlantic partnership and reconstituting it to compose members of Congress here and members of the European Parliament to work on issues of counterterrorism, the money that's being funneled into our universities, which is adversely affecting our students. There's actually a lot of money coming in from China, and China wants things to their advantage, not to our advantage.
Sure.
And it's affecting our youth and our kids that want to go to school. And also dealing with issues with the border. I mean, just in December, we had 40,000 Chinese militants crossing the border. I have personally spent time at the border. I did not go down there for a photo op. Right. I trekked cartel trails with an AR. I have this weird no fear factor. I don't know what's wrong with me. I have no idea. This is not normal. But I'm telling you, I've seen it. I was able to get into holding facilities in Eagles Pass, for example, where 300 to 500 people are coming through per day. And it's really, really sad because these people sacrificed everything to come into America. They went through an area called the Darien Gap where women and children are being raped. Many are being murdered. It's horrifying. They make it down to the southern border of Mexico. Then Mexico and the United Nations gives them money. They bring them all the way up to our border, and then they have to pay the cartel $5,000, $10,000 to cross a river. I personally met a woman from Haiti whose son drowned crossing the Rio Grande to get across. I mean, it was horrifying. And my point is, this is not a humane way to come into this country. If we want people to come into this country that do need some type of refuge, then they need to come in a way where they're not beholden to the cartel, because if they don't pay, they're going to kill all their family members who are left behind. Children drown all the time when they're crossing. Children are being drugged to cross. It's just a really, really horrible, sad sight because they want them to be quiet when they cross. And we know that with good policy, we can shut down the migration at our border. Currently, the number of people who have crossed our border are having more children than we are as American citizens. They are getting all sorts of stipends. They're being shipped out across America. We don't know where they're going. I recently met with the Chief Police Association, and it's my understanding, even in areas, rural areas in Virginia, that illegal immigrants are going to our schools. They're taping the schools on the outside, which is a real concern. The Sheriff's Association recently met. They're very concerned about an imminent terrorist attack. And the point is, Iran doesn't like us. China doesn't like us. They are coming through. You have Border Patrol agents that have such a huge influx that they're busy doing paperwork. And you may have 2 Border Patrol agents over hundreds of miles on the Rio Grande. So I've watched them late at night. They try to catch 7, 8 at a time, process them. In the meantime, plenty more come in. And it's not that we don't have a love for people, but this is in no way humane. It's not good for America. And we're spending so much money. I don't think it's fair to the American citizens. I mean, look at the number of homeless people we have in our streets, and many are veterans. We're not taking care of our military members, and it's common sense policy. And I can tell you, building the border wall is not going to fix this problem. I've seen the border wall in different points. Cartel members have keys to the doors. They easily climb these walls, so that's nonsense. In the last administration, we had enough to build the border wall. This current administration sold all the border wall materials for like $120,000, $130,000. And, that was millions of dollars worth of material. It's really sad. So, I don't think that America should be an isolationist. I think America should be an example. But I really think we've got a lot of problems here. And we have a lot of people to take care of. And we need to think about Americans, and particularly with the opioid epidemic. It is so sad, the number of families being destroyed and children being removed from their homes because of this issue. And if we cut off the movement of the drugs at the border, and a lot of this is coming out of China. I mean, this is warfare. This is 5th generation warfare. It's coming out of China. It's killing more people than the amount that died in the Vietnam War, like on a continual basis. It really needs to be addressed. And the thing I'm seeing in Virginia, too, is that in schools, we're not educating our kids about these drugs. They're talking about marijuana still and some other things. And I'm like, can we talk about, opioids and fentanyl and what the real dangers are? So there's got to be a whole lot more preparation for kids. I came out of the 80s. I came out of the Ronald Reagan years where they said, just say no to drugs, right? And I got to say, I think it worked for me. I was like scared to death of drugs. Sure. Now, we don't know if we're going to go to a gas pump and you'd barely touch something somewhere and it could kill us. I mean, that's really sad. And the other thing I'm seeing, because the economy is so bad, is that I'm scared to pump gas now. I'm scared somebody's going to steal my car. Yeah. So it didn't used to be like that. I take my key out of my car, I lock it to pump the gas, I look around, I carry. I mean, I feel safer carrying. I do believe in Second Amendment rights. I think Second Amendment rights and the guns that Americans have protects us from a government that is not doing the best things for the people right now. We have a government that has been recreating and overtaking all sorts of governments across the world to their benefit, not to the benefit of the people in those countries, but really for greed. And as long as we have continual wars, everybody's making money with the military-industrial complex. And as a result, our veterans, they're not putting money into our military personnel. We're treating our military personnel like cattle. And actually, service members here make up $20.1 billion of the Virginia economy. So, for example, if they don't agree on a budget up in Washington, we're going to be in real trouble down here. That's a lot of our budget from our military personnel. And 80% of service members, when they get out, have some type of trauma, PTSD, physical injury. And so a lot of kids don't want to go into the military now.
Right.
And when they do, you've got barracks with mold, you've got rats, it is not good living conditions. And I think that really needs to be addressed. I don't think it's fair that we can create all these wars continually, which are fixable with good diplomacy. We've seen in the past, you have good diplomacy, you agree, you don't need, what's happening right now is completely unnecessary, and it's unnecessary to our soldiers. And I think we need to do everything possible to save human life on all sides.
You mentioned Ronald Reagan, wasn't he peace through strength?
Yeah, correct.
And I think, and we're depleting our military. Yeah. I've heard on the news, our ammunition supply is all sorts of, in disrepair. You mentioned some of the things in Europe when you were there. One thing you haven't mentioned was Russia. And I noticed that, Europe is buying their energy from Russia. And that's fueling this same Iran, Russia, China syndrome. And I heard, and if we were back to our energy efficient, energy first days, we would be selling that energy to Europe instead of Russia and funding things that the money goes from Russia.
Correct, yeah.
It's really a shame when literally overnight the current administration just shut down our energy department, so
Correct.
to speak.
Yeah. Speaking of diplomacy, for example, with Ukraine and Russia, Putin has specifically asked for peace talks. He is not being given peace talks by any country anywhere. He apparently does not want this, according to the Tucker Carlson interview that he recently had. The issue with our bad diplomacy with this is that when we're giving money to Ukraine, a lot of those weapons that are going to Ukraine are making it back through our southern border, which can then be used in terrorist attacks against us. And the other issue is the migration of Ukrainians across Europe. It's costing European countries a massive amount of money, and they're having to deal with those problems. And all this can be shut down. When I went and spoke with members of the European Parliament in Brussels, they said, no one ever comes and speaks to us from America. We just want somebody to sit down and talk to us, even if it's about cheese. And I went there and we talked about geopolitics and the role of NATO and the role of the United Nations and the World Health Organization and all these global agendas that are affecting us. And definitely one of the biggest agendas is food issues. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the farmers have protested across Europe because of the deep regulations, which are going to really prevent them from producing the food that they need to produce. And the member of French Parliament I met with, she thinks that they're trying to compartmentalize everything. So like Brussels area in Belgium, they want to make that a research center. They want all of our meat to come out of South America. They want everything to be broken up and very controlled. They want digital currencies. If you have a digital currency, you're going to be tracked heavily. And we already have a lot of government tracking. And that's the really sad thing about our government. If you stand up for the rights of people, we have a government that comes after just the smallest of people that try to help others. And they really don't want people who want to unite people. That's a danger, because once you're united, you're going to be harder to control. And,
right.
and
Strength
that's,
in numbers, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like what most politicians, they have a good platform. Yours is an excellent platform, and you have these grandiose ideas. But when you get there, you get consumed by the bureaucracy. How are you going to overcome that?
So far, I've been involved in Virginia politics for a decade, and I have never been compromised. And it doesn't always make you popular. It makes you a huge target, and it's not an easy path. It's dangerous when you don't comply. I've had my brake lines cut. I have had organized gang stalking where they fill up people in a room like actors, and they come up to you one at a time. The most bizarre thing I've seen in my entire life. I've had fake national and global news stories to make me appear as a violent extremist when I'm a single mom with no speeding tickets. I was a straight A student. I've done nothing but serve my communities. I mean, since I was little, I've always volunteered. I've always done stuff in my community because, I just believe in a life of serving others, and that's what I've always lived to do. I even had a documentary done on me that went viral in Europe to make me look like this crazy person as well. So they will do everything possible to come after you and really destroy your image. And that affects sometimes how people perceive you. And that's a shame, because then they're like, well, I don't know. I saw this in this documentary, and it's
Sure.
a lot of made up stuff. So
Well,
that's
here,
what happens.
Here in the last few years, though, I think the public has got a taste of that type of politics. And really, I think it hasn't been working here lately. And we see that, of course, with our former president as well. And it's like we're just going to attack. We don't have any policies of our own, but we're going to attack what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's got to change. I think both sides should say, this is what we stand for, this is the way we see it, but we don't have that.
No,
I don't think either side can't really sell their policies, so to speak.
I am so tired of watching the news and watching them come after each other in Congress instead of working for the American people. And I'm like, can we just stop impeaching and do whatever we're doing on both sides and maybe say, hey, we have a problem with people dying from drug overdoses. Can we do something about that? I mean, our kids are not doing well in school compared to other countries. We're really behind. What are we going to do about that? Our military has been weakened and we have really low enrollment numbers. What are we going to do about that? And one thing, we have 293 battle-ready naval ships here. China is up to 400. They plan on in the 5 years after that, they're going to get up to 1,000, then they're going to get up to 1,500. If you look at a map of what Russia and China are producing compared to America, we're not going to be a world power. The dollar is being de-dollarized, and I'd love to talk about the economy briefly as far as that's concerned. People don't think too deeply about it. They just know, okay, everything costs too much. What are we going to do?
Right.
But with the formation of BRICS, which is a bunch of countries coming together, they have gold-backed means of trade now, and actually they're going to be great financially. So you've got Russia, India, China, it was a whole bunch of countries all came together. Everybody wants to be on BRICS. Even Texas talked about being in this alliance for trade because, the dollar's not doing well. We are $34.2 trillion in debt, but that debt is with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is actually privately owned, and most Americans don't know this.
I don't think they realize that.
It's privately owned. This is fake debt to scare people. It is on paper. We are paying unknown people who are pushing these wars and making money from wars. They're giving us money to fight these wars. They're making money from it. We're borrowing a huge percentage of our GDP is is paying whoever's running this Federal Reserve. And centralized banking has been the cause of a lot of problems ever since it started. I mean, I think presidents have been murdered, like JFK. He was trying to do, I think it was Executive Order 11110, I believe is the number. He was trying to get silver-backed money at the time, and I think he got offed. Go deep. You got to do a deep dive. You're going to think I'm crazy. Titanic. I think the Titanic sunk because the guys on it who were really wealthy were fighting the centralized banking. It goes back really deep, and I really, really think that something really positive is about to happen. I think that we're gonna, apparently from my sources, we're gonna have a new type of currency, which is gonna be called the U.S. note. We'll see if this really happens. The entire centralized banking system is going to collapse. I mean, we can't continue on this path. There's no way.
Yeah,
and
we
not
pay
real.
over $1 trillion a year in interest.
Yeah. It is not real.
People don't understand how big a trillion is. I mean,
So I guess my message for people is we're not going to continue on the path that we're on. It's literally impossible, because the personal debt that Americans have with credit cards and their mortgages compared to the Federal Reserve debt, it's not sustainable. That's all going to come crashing down. Potentially the stock market is also going to come crashing down. So, I mean, I follow the market and all that very, very closely, the economy very closely. But I think that we're going to transition to a commodity asset backed currency, and that we're going to go back to earlier prices, and it's going to be a different world. And I'm hearing this from a lot of sources. I'm hoping this is the case. If we have to continue on this trajectory by the time that I get into office, then we'd really have to see what are we going to do, because it's not real debt. We don't even know who this is to. I mean, who's pulling the strings of all this money, right?
We know China.
Who are we owing this
debt?
money to? Yeah. I mean, come on. But I do. I think good things are coming, and I'd love to talk about what I'm really passionate about.
And we haven't done that yet?
I got something I'm like, it's like closest to my heart.
Okay, well, let's get that out.
Thank you. So my husband left me and our kids when they were 6, 8, and 10, beginning of 2017. And he's Dutch. Not that that matters. I don't know. I just believe in marriage, and I had this fairy tale idea of being married forever and having kids, and that kind of blew up. It's sad. But I thought when he filed for divorce that I'd walk into a courtroom and I'd have rights as a parent and I'd be fine. I was staying at home at the time. Sure. I mean, I was on the farm. I homeschooled my kids. They were little. I mean, it was just a great time, what a blessing to be at home with your kids. I mean, this was one of the best things I ever did in my entire life. And I walked in and I had no rights. I had no rights at all. And I've been in court for 7 years. I learned that the divorce industry is a $55 billion industry. They will take everything you own. They're going to take your home, every cent you have in your bank account. Doesn't matter. They're going to take your kids. A lot of parents walk into court and they never see their kids again. And this is part of the destruction of the family. This has been going on for decades. And then to top it off, we're actually losing 1 child per minute in our court system to Child Protective Services. That's a huge number, 1 child per minute. I'm not saying that we don't need Child Protective Services, but I know that 98% of the hotline calls are a neighbor who's angry at somebody or an ex that's disgruntled, and these are not real reasons to remove children. And we're actually spending $29 billion of our taxpayer dollars to rip children out of the arms of their parents. A lot of these parents are too poor to fight the system because the lawyers are ruling all this. A lot of people can't afford an attorney. A lot of people have no idea that they have rights as a parent. And so they just bulldoze them. They take their children. We lose 55 children per day in foster care go missing. 55 children per day. We don't even know. A lot of these kids are being trafficked. They're being abused. You have a greater chance when you're removed out of your family of abuse and being trafficked. And when this whole divorce thing happened, I tried to take something positive out of it. And I built a coalition across the entire United States. We go to D.C. all the time to try to push policy to change this, because why are we giving so much money to other people to raise our own children instead of lifting up our families. That's money. We have the money to work on family reunification, housing stability, education, opioid addiction treatment, and mental health care access. We have the money, but instead we want to rip our families apart. And every time I have a parent that calls me from across the nation who lost their child, I can't think of anything more horrifying than being separated from your child and the amount of trauma that it costs. It actually costs the American taxpayer trillions of dollars because of the amount of court cost, the treatment that kids need. These kids that get removed out of their family that have trauma, they don't end up finishing high school. A lot of times when they come out of foster care, they don't have families to go to. And I'm saying, let's strengthen our family. Let's keep our families together. We've got the money to do it. And I may never be free from the court system because once you're in, you're in. And
hard to get out.
Yeah, I took my stuff to the United States Supreme Court. They probably didn't expect that. And I'm challenging the rights of parents over the state because I have rights as a parent. You know, I mean, my kids are 14, 16, 18 now. There was domestic violence involved and abuse. And a normal parent would never, ever subject their children or their family to the amount of abuse in court. You know, that happens in cases of domestic violence. And I just have no rights in the court system. So my goal is to make these into constitutional courts. Most people think that these are constitutional courts, the Constitution exists. These are admiralty courts. The Constitution doesn't exist. You don't actually have rights. We have fantastic laws in Virginia. We have fantastic federal laws, but they're not implemented because no one's overseeing these courts to make sure that you have a First Amendment right, you have a Second Amendment right, you have a right to not have your home searched and seized, which is what they do anytime you get into a domestic type of civil court situation. And civil courts are also where we take our elderly, and even though someone has power of attorney or family, they put them in homes and they clean them out and they kill them in these places. And it's really sad.
There's a lot of stories. You're talking a lot of doom and gloom, but
no,
I think
it's going to be awesome, man. We're going to fix it. But that's why I need people to vote for me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. We don't want to sound like it's doom and gloom, but I think underlying there is you have a lot of positive things that will come forth from some of these things. But like you say, people need to be aware. And I don't think some people, we just go about our life day to day. These things that are, as you mentioned, sometimes don't affect us, directly until it does, like divorce or drugs or something. And all of a sudden your eyes are open and wow, how long's that been going on? And we realize that, and you mentioned family. I think the breakup of families has been something that we've seen since 60s maybe for quite a long time. And it's a problem, and and I think part of that is the mobility of our families. When we were married, we were here in Washington D.C. with our first, and our children were born, but our parents were all out west in Arizona. So you didn't have. I try to tell people here locally, when some people work for us, I said, you are so blessed to have your family living in the same town that you have. Nice. And people just, that goes back to that unifying families again. I think it's a great thing.
So big picture is, I want everybody to go out and have a good time, have a good life. Don't be worried so much. Live in the moment, live in the day. Don't worry about them. You shouldn't have to be worried, do I need to get food tonight or gas? That should be my worry. I want people to enjoy their lives and to savor it because it goes by so quick. Enjoy your families. Enjoy your job. Go do something you love. Let the worry be on me. I'm good at fixing stuff. I'm good at pulling people together, and I'm really, really passionate about fixing people's problems because I literally care. I just really care. I have a big heart for people. And so that's why I'm doing this.
It takes courage to do this job. It does take a lot of courage because you will get beat up and maybe literally, but it does happen. And it takes a lot. And I wonder sometimes, I've met many of our leaders that we have, and I'm thinking, how have they survived? You always say that. You go back and you look at presidents, for instance, from way back. You see the picture of them when they come in, and you see the picture when they go out. And they have aged
Correct.
a lot of years, and you earn that hair. I mean, that's what my
Exactly.
problem
I got a
is.
little white streak here right now. I know.
But it's a lot of work, and it sounds like you be a very positive individual, and you have a plan, and I think that's important to have a plan. And we want to congratulate you and
Thank you.
wish that you good luck on this. But when does all this happen again? It's May,
Correct.
the
So
primary.
early voting starts May 5th. You can vote May 5th to June 18th. I would love for people to show up to vote early. I really need your help. A lot of families are depending upon me to save them. A lot of people around the world are suffering, and I know this is a global issue right now. All these issues are affecting all of us. And if you want to help people, all you have to do is just go to your poll and vote. You don't have to do anything past that. Then you can go home and have a good time, and I'll go do all the hard work and be all over the state.
And
and
you're
engage
having
people.
town halls all over the state.
I sure am. We're having a town hall tonight at the Warren Community Center that starts at 6 o'clock. I'd love for people to come down. I don't know when you're going to air this.
As soon as I can.
Good, but look on the website
I don't know,
too.
it's getting a little long here.
Look on the website, www.kimberlylowe.com. There's a list of upcoming town halls. Thank
Because you're
you.
going all in the region, so, of course, the Royal Examiner goes everywhere.
Great.
But when you see these town halls, it's interesting to go to them because you find out you can talk one-on-one with the candidates, and I think that's important to get to really know people. And I think you'll come away surprised.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
for your time.
Well, no, thank you, Kimberly. We're going to plan to be at your town hall. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, thank you.
And hopefully hundreds of people will show up, and they can get to meet you. And we want to remind people the early voting starts May 5th.
Yes,
And
thank
so there's several people on the ballot, and it sounds like
You don't want to vote for them. I'm way more fun.
But the big important thing is to vote.
Yes.
And I think that's the big thing to do. Get out there and vote. Sometimes, the primaries things kind of get lost in the shuffle, but I think it's an important position. These seats only come up every 6 years.
Correct. It's a big deal.
And it's a big deal. It is a big deal. It's one of the most important part of our system is the Senate. And so I think that's kind of where the,
Yep.
rubber meets the road, so to
Exactly.
speak. All right. Again, thanks so much, Kimberly.
Thank
I
you
really
so much.
appreciate it. Nice
Thank
meeting you.
Thank you.